You give an interesting example at the beginning of the book, and I may be getting some of the details wrong, but there was someone who created a startup to help people automatically pay their parking tickets.
Automatically get out of paying their parking tickets.
Sorry, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Automatically protest their parking
that's
tickets
right.
in the easiest, quickest possible way. And so, which just seems like an awesome idea as someone
On the surface, that's right.
who's gotten fat parking tickets in New York once for sitting 5 minutes out of an apartment I was moving into, and
Yeah.
others that were totally deserved.
Yep.
I suppose all were deserved in some sense, but it's a great idea on the surface, but as it progressed, you saw some problems with it. Can you describe what
Yeah,
happened?
just as you say, we give an example of this company called Do Not Pay, which offers this service of optimizing the grievance procedure you can use to try to get out of paying a parking ticket. And I can imagine a whole bunch of stories a founder or a technologist could tell about why this would be a valuable undertaking. But the kinds of things we heard from the particular person who started the company amounted to basically an idea of sticking it to the man. It's just somehow unfair that parking tickets exist, and if you can get out of paying them, and it's better if you can do it in an automated way. Why wouldn't you do that? The origin story he tells of the company is that he got a whole bunch of parking tickets as a high school kid, and he was sick and tired of having to pay them. And so he found a way to just make it far easier for him to get out of paying parking tickets, and then why not bring it to other people? And as we say then in the opening pages of the book, well, parking tickets serve a legitimate function. They are a source of revenue for municipalities. They avoid alternate side of the street parking problems so that there can be street cleaning. Parking in a disabled spot, that's a problem for other people who are disabled if you take the spot. It's a way of then trying to also provide a modest incentive for people to take public transportation. So I can imagine that there are stories to tell about why this would be a good thing, but none of those stories were on offer in our experience from the person. And the idea was, basically, well, if you can get out of paying a parking ticket, you should, because who wants to deal with the hassle of parking tickets? And that just seems to us like the prototypical way of disrupting for disruption's sake, with no account of the other values that might be at stake in optimizing a grievance procedure for getting out of parking tickets.
Yeah, and it's also a classic tragedy, the commons problem,
Yeah,
because the moment parking becomes effectively free is the moment you can no longer park anywhere.
that's
Definitely
right.
in a city like New York, you will never
Yep.
find a single spot ever.
Yep.
So, and that's certainly not optimal. But I thought the even more interesting aspect of this was I can imagine this idea being sold as an effort to fight, income inequality
Sure.
and to help, to help poor people who don't have time and really can't not think about $100 traffic ticket,
Right.
fight it easily. And I can imagine all of that being compelling until I think I recall the person who came up with this technology said, well, deep in the future, I'm looking towards a world where we can just sue each other with the press
Right.
of a button
Yep.
because
Yeah.
of this
Wants to disrupt
technology.
lawyers. We'll have lawsuits filed at the click of a button as well. Yeah, it's the thirst for disruption, run amok. Disrupting has a positive valence in Silicon Valley, and disruption of old industrial Goliaths that are inefficient in various ways is one thing, and developing new efficiencies, new business models, all good. Count me in favor. But you should have an account, a story to tell about if you succeed at disrupting, what are the other potentially good values, good social systems that exist that you might want to have an account for. We give another example in the book of this thing, which is a kind of triviality at a certain level, but is a nice illustration, I think, of Soylent, this meal replacement powder, also created by some Silicon Valley engineers. And the origin story of this, I find the following sentence an incredible sentence for someone to have said. The founder of this company said, "I discovered that food is an inefficient vehicle for the body's nutritional needs." You got to shop for stuff. You have to cook. You have to clean up afterwards. You might have to socialize with people while you're eating. And it's just a pain in the ass to have to eat food. And so the idea was create a powder that allegedly is optimized for the body's nutritional needs. You add some water, you shake it, you drink, you're done for the day, or have it 3 times. And all right, let's grant the guys who created this the benefit of the doubt to say they've optimized for the body's nutritional needs in a super efficient, low-cost way. Job well done. It turns out that food has other values attached to it. It's a source of cultural identity for some people. It's a source of pleasure for other people to eat the stuff that tastes good. And then it's also a source of social gathering and social connection. So a world in which Soylent was the only thing we had to feed ourselves with would be a terrible world. Not because what they did was bad. They optimized for one thing and neglected a range of other values. And I think that's another story of disruption in Silicon Valley. You succeed at optimizing a particular thing that unsettles the broader ecosystem in which other values are also at stake. And so to give a concrete example that comes up later in the book that's more significant than, say, Soylent is, the end-to-end encrypted messaging platforms that you and I and all the listeners probably use, whether it's iMessage or WhatsApp or Signal or Telegram, those are optimized for privacy and this technical accomplishment of encrypting messages so that the government can't inspect them, and not the company either. So it's completely shielded from inspection. Goes all in on one value of privacy. But there are other rival values in a broader social system of personal safety and national security. And I think when you create a technology and bring it to scale for millions of people to use, you need a story to tell about why privacy is the only value worth caring about. And when the government asks Apple to give a backdoor entry into the iPhone for the San Bernardino terrorist case, or Apple decides it wants to scan some of the photos that people upload to iCloud to look for child pornography, and people cry foul about privacy invasions, we need a broader story to tell about how to balance safety against privacy, and allowing the technologists the only say and to optimize for only one value is to neglect these other values that we care about as well.
Yeah, that's where a philosophy perspective becomes crucial, because you're dealing with 2 things that matter, and you have to, I guess, think about where the trade-off is between several important things in some kind of context of a notion of the good to begin with. So I'm curious, do you feel as a philosopher that whatever your meta ethics are helps you decide these kinds of trade-offs? Whether, I don't know, do you consider yourself a consequentialist or a deontologist, or neither?
Yeah. Excellent. So, I mean, one just preliminary comment, which is that I just agree 100% with you that we're entering into a realm of trade-offs and rival good values. Safety and security, objectively good things. Privacy, also objectively good. Turns out you can't maximize all of them at the same time. So we have to face trade-offs. Okay. From the standpoint of the technologist, when you tell them, as I do as a philosopher, there's no uniquely correct answer. There's no truth about the way to balance safety versus privacy. There are different ways of doing it. Some of them are better and some of them are worse. That sometimes makes the technologist uneasy or uncomfortable. Wait a minute, what do you mean there's no right and wrong answer? I'm like, everything that I do is computationally tractable in some way, and it either works or it doesn't work. So that's where the philosopher comes in. And as you say, I could give you my answer that sort of takes from my own background moral theory as a consequentialist or a deontologist or a virtue ethicist or whatever it turns out to be. But since my training is as a political philosopher, and in particular as a democratic theorist, the kind of answer I prefer to offer in this case is to say, whatever I would want morally is only one part, one voice, one element in a larger social system. And democratic politics or democratic institutions are themselves a procedure to referee these value trade-offs. So what I want to put into the equation is to say, any single person's answer, has some value within a democratic procedure, which allows us to engage in deliberation and contestation with diverse preferences and values themselves, and deliver a temporary outcome in the form of a regulation or a policy that if we don't like in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, we can update through the ordinary democratic process to change the weights that we attach to them. And that seems to me an appropriate way to confront these value trade-offs, which is why part of the story about why big tech failed in the book is that, the CEO of Signal shouldn't be the only person who decides whether or not end-to-end encrypted messaging for millions of people is the only way to go. There are other voices that matter, voices of ordinary citizens, voices of people in the political system, voices of people who care about national security or or safety. And what I want to say is it's not a meta-ethical position I take here. It's a politically ethical position to say democracy is the technology we have to referee value trade-offs at a social level. And we should lean into that.